customers go in there and once they've been living with their building for 2 to 3 years, man, I wish this, I wish that, I wish I would have done this. Once you make third-party modifications, some people just don't want to touch it because it's a lot more hassle than it's worth.
Welcome back. This is Adbil and Jared from WolfSteel Buildings, and this is our very first episode of MetalTalks. So we take the biggest challenges, the biggest frustrations, and nightmares that are happening in the Texas in the metal building world in general, and we break it down here. Now, quick disclaimer, this is just our opinion, okay? That's just based on our experience. So if you don't like our answer, take a deep breath. Go grab a beer or maybe some coffee, and just remember that we're just some Texas metal builders talking on the internet.
Or another thing, even then, I mean, how many years of experience do you have in the industry?
I've lost count, man, but I think I'm at 18. So I started when I was like 14, I think, or started actually installing buildings.
So I got like 10, but there's people out there who have like 20, 25, 30, so I mean, I'm sure there's a huge number of people that got us beat. So, the whole point of this whole series is pretty much to just dialogue, and who knows, maybe we might learn a thing or two, from people leaving comments in the comment section of how they would maybe address things. And who knows, that might change our perspective on how we go about these certain challenges. So anything y'all have, leave them in the comments. We're more than happy, to see them. And hey, they change their mind, they change their mind. Like RR Buildings once said, if you're not learning, you're dying. So shout out RR Buildings.
Hopefully we can do a collab one day. Hey, you never know. Never know. All right. So the first issue is saying, what have y'all done to delete or remove the bottom frame of the walk-in door? He doesn't like that it's a tripping hazard when walking into the door. Number one, what is the issue? Jared, what do you see?
So this is more of on the tubular side, this challenge right here, because it's a very common door. It's the mobile home or fiberglass door. And these type of doors, they have like a nail fin around them, right? It comes with its own frame, but you have to kind of screw around it, kind of like almost a window, right? And so what that causes is on the bottom of the door, you run a base rail, right? And that base rail, it's like 2.25 to 2.5 inches. Yeah. So like right there, if you have concrete for your building, that door is raised almost 3 inches, from the finished floor elevation.
So that's the challenge he's going here. So that's the issue. What is our opinion on it? Well, as you mentioned, definitely this is the most common door offered in tubular buildings, and they're called mobile home doors.
Yeah.
Right. And as you mentioned, it's like a nail fin. And I know we have the window here to kind of show, because we don't have the door here specifically. It's we do have one have some at our Weatherford shop. By the way, we do manufacture our own tubular buildings. So it's very similar to this.
It's very similar.
And basically like aluminum frame. That's why you need a solid frame to frame and install on. And that's why you need the tubing. So tubular buildings, that's the most common door. The client's having that issue right now. What is your opinion also on that, Jared? It's also hard to like access, especially even like ADA access, especially as you get older. I know a lot of my experience, we've come back and swapped them.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. We don't, just us personally, we don't really do too many mobile home doors. I think the biggest challenge, at least I would say in the tubular industry, is, a customer comes in asking, hey, well, let's get a door in there. I want an easy access door. I don't want to have to open my big garage doors or, just the service. Yeah, just a service door to make it easier for me. It depends on who you call, right? But, the salesman you're talking to, right? This is where it's up to them to steer you the right way. So they'll say, hey, you want a 36 by 80 door work? Yeah, great. Okay, let's get that added. Right. And that's it. I think it's like a $400 door, $300 door. And, they don't ask questions. They don't explain the type of door it is. I feel like that's where maybe, by us, at least in our in-house sales team, makes a big difference is we say, well, hey, hold on. We have a mobile home door and then we have a steel door. The steel door is a little bit more expensive, but here's why. And then we start explaining those things. And I think the biggest thing is that, once we explain to the customers, like, hey, there's a threshold there that, you don't really think about it, especially when get a brand new building. It's kind of like, oh, there's a threshold there. You don't really worry about it until now you've done it 10 times. You're having to step over. Now you're kind of like, oh man, that's annoying, and then you just kind of live with it. And then once you stepped over it 100 times, now you're like, a customer in this situation, right? Where you're like, how could I get rid of this? Now it's like, now it's like every time you have to step over, it's like, it's a nuisance, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is our opinion. At least my opinion. I think that's why we sell a lot of steel doors.
Yeah, and then the other thing is because the mobile home door is like $400, but the steel door is like $1,200 or $1,400. So it's a huge difference. So typically those are like the only two options. I know there are some companies that do offer multiple different, but the biggest question is what kind of frame it has and how will it sit on the ground? Because I know there are some like a little bit more higher mobile home doors, but they still have to be installed on the base rail, which is what makes it a nuisance, right?
Yeah, it's that. I mean, the the door will work. It's not that the door doesn't per se function. It's gonna last you a good 5, I'd say 3 years, right? It's the only thing that we require. The only time that we require it is when they're getting spray foam. We require them to get the steel door, but it's a decent door. It'll get the job done, but we find that we don't really do them because of that.
That is one good point, Jared, that you mentioned about the mobile home doors. I know we don't offer mobile home doors if we're going to do the spray foam because we've had those because the frame is so light, it shifts with the pressure of the spray foam and then you have problems. That's the reason why we don't offer mobile home doors if you are doing spray foam, at least with us. And if you're going to get your own spray foam, we actually, tell our clients. But let's move on into the client here or the user here for this door is already with this predicament, with this problem, right? How would we solve the issue at stake? But what are some of the challenges with that now?
Yes,
We recommend.
obviously, the first thing is to just get a different door,
Yeah.
right? A door that's either a different type, requires a different type of, I guess, has a different frame that doesn't necessarily need that bottom face rail. So, like our steel door, it drills directly into the concrete at the bottom. That's why it doesn't need it. And then we just create a full frame around it. The problem there is that sometimes it's better to go into a bigger door because if you go into a smaller door, now you're lacking sheet metal and it's going to look a little weird.
Trim.
Yeah, trim. So the best thing you can do is simply just make a bigger frame opening. So maybe explore a 4 wide steel door. And, usually these mobile home doors are always 36 by 80. So it's a 6'8" tall door. Our steel door, you can get into like a 3 foot wide by 7 foot tall. That way you can use the same sheet metal that's there. You just might need a little bit of bigger trim, which is really not a huge expense.
Yeah. And then also like you want to stay away from more panels because now you're going to have to patch. And a lot of times this also happens when you're trying to do an add-on to an existing building. The panel colors, the coils are not coming from the same batch. Yeah. So they're not going to match. Or even after a while, the color fades a little bit. So they're just not going to match. So you want to stay away from getting a frame or a door that is smaller than the frame required for that mobile home door. So really good point. I know one of the other ones is to ask, your tubular provider or where you bought your building to come and swap it out. That's possible at times, I think, because if some builders don't touch the building, like say you spray foam the building with like a third party, they won't come back and do it, would they? I mean, it depends.
It depends on the builder, because now it's like in the industry a lot, once you make third party modifications, it's something to kind of read into before, when you're signing on your dotted line. But when you make those type of third party modifications, some people just don't want to touch it because it's a lot more hassle than it's worth. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah, and the tubular industry is built for new construction. Like that's the goal. It's like new project, new building, and it's built for that. To retrofit or to do like a remodel, which almost becomes like that. If you look at it in construction, there's new construction and then there's like remodel and retrofitting stuff. That's a lot more work. There's a lot more. You need a person that can understand what's at stake and how is he gonna solve for that problem, as opposed to when you just come in and you just repetitively doing new construction. I think that's the main reason why I've seen many, and I'm speaking for the industry in general, this is just my opinion, will not come and do, doesn't, it's a little bit more like you're saying that you won't get that help, but hey, give it a try, give them a call. They might be able to do it. Swap your door, especially if it's been recent, the chances are higher. But if you're talking over a year, I think, and then especially if you have third party accessories like spray foam and stuff, it might be a little more 50-50.
Yeah, so you can definitely switch to a residential door, or a steel door. It's just going to involve the framing, modifying the framing, which that's the problem at that point is, you modify the framing, you might want to get your same guy out there.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they won't touch it, sometimes they will. Just really the only option you have at that point is just reach out to them and see how it goes. You know what I mean? So there are some really good builders out there that, they'll definitely help you out. So it's just, I guess that's where you kind of see, right? But I guess another thing is maybe I have here the frame adjustments. I think you can give a little bit more insight on that.
Yeah. So in that post, so again, don't forget to follow. I would recommend to follow Owners of Metal Carports. This is a Facebook group where there are so many people from all over the nation. We're talking metal buildings from Washington all the way down to Florida. And they share a lot of experiences, just like even before, buying a metal building and afterwards. So that's where we got this comment from, or this post from. But we also have a group that we're starting here. It's Texas Owners or Marketing help us out with the name. And this one is a new one that we're starting with MetalTalks. And the whole point of this one is obviously we want to create more talks about the challenges and even the accomplishments of what you're doing with your building, so you can share with other metal building owners, especially with Texas. Because I know like metal buildings for Texas are very different compared to metal buildings in Michigan and Wisconsin and those upper states. So there's a lot of commonalities, but there's a lot of differences. And for that reason, we want to start this group. But I know you and I are going to be very involved in that, Jared.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I like to get involved in those just to kind of see, I guess, speaking very directly, I like to see what challenges customers experience, going through other building providers. That way we can also maybe improve our process, maybe in things that, customers go in there and once they've been living with their building for 2 to 3 years, man, I wish this, I wish that, I wish I would have done this. So, that's where I go in there. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we need to make sure we're, how do I say, putting more emphasis on this in the sales process of this,
Yep.
Or of that. So I like to go in there, maybe sometimes, just kind of look at it. So that's I guess mine.
For this new group, Jared and I will be definitely involved in there to answer a lot of them, because I know that we've been getting a lot of comments on YouTube where, hey, I got a question here, I got a question here. But sometimes a picture is what really helps to be able to really help. So that's the reason also for this group is that Jared and I are gonna be involved in there. If you have a question, you have like a challenge, you can put it there. We might even bring it up to MetalTalks, or we might give an answer there directly.
Yeah, and another thing is, sometimes, people have a busy schedule. So what they'll do, customers, when they're commenting on our YouTube section, they'll be like, hey, I got a question here. And it involves a lot of more depth. And I'm like, hey, that's a pretty complex question. Send it over to this email. And then by like 1 week goes by and work comes up, kids, school, many things can come up. And then that email just never gets sent. And honestly, I mean, we're also pretty busy, to be able to follow up with customers on, like those certain type of situations, it's just not really feasible. But sometimes if you can send it, if you have the sitting and you send it in that group chat and we have all the facts and pictures there, maybe we can give you a little bit more insight right at that moment,
That help you. So going back to then on the comment for the frame adjustment was another solution that was in the comment in that post. And I don't know if that will work, Jared. I don't see how that works, especially with that frame.
So the frame adjustment is, they said, remove the bottom two, that threshold on the door, and pretty much pop out all the screws for the door and just move the door down. So where it's kind of sitting on the concrete. But now that gap, you're going to have like a 2.25-inch gap on top of the door. They said simply put the tube in there. I think it would work, but at that point, just speaking my preference, I would rather just keep it the same, because now it's going to look a little weird. Like your sheet metal only comes down to 80-inch, but your door is sitting at roughly 77 3/4. You know what I mean? So you're going to have a gap there that's just going to be straight tubey.
I mean, they could fill it with new panels, patch it up. I just think it would look very, I don't know. It's not one that we recommend, but it was suggested. I think it's definitely, we think it can be done. And then, but what about the bottom part of that frame? I mean, that's aluminum. Unless you just cut it, that raises, I know, about maybe 3/4 inch to an inch. It's still going to be there unless you also, I don't know. That's
a great noise. I would rather not do that solution and try to mythbuster it. So we're going to leave that one as an unsolved mystery.
That's funny. All right. So the final one is, how does WolfSteel Buildings solve or prevent for this? We actually already mentioned a couple things, but we'll reiterate on those. We actually standardized a lot for the steel doors. We really push for the steel doors. I think it's 95% of what we do for our tubular buildings. And I can see why the mobile home door is a lot more common in the industry. Again, it's because of the $300 to $400 price to an $1,100 to $1,400 price of a steel door, depending the size. But that steel door is really, I like it, especially the ones we're getting right now. It's really good.
Yeah, it's it's got a full steel frame. The door itself is steel. It's
yeah,
I like the door. We recently switched door suppliers, so definitely want to keep our new supplier.
Another thing is clients, you can get your own door. So go to go to Home Depot, Lowe's, a hardware store, and get your own door. And you must have it on site though. Must have it on site before we arrive. That way we can create the frame and we can also install them. So there is also a labor fee for that. So usually what you're going to pay is like a frame out charge, which is to frame out and create it, trim, and cut out the panels and everything. And then from there, there's a labor to install, which, installing doors is also not that easy too. You got to make sure it's nice and square and shim it out as needed. Alrighty. And then also when we do our steel doors, we also do, since it's a bigger frame, or if you get like a custom door from like Menards, I'm so used to up north, but like Lowe's, Home Depot, the frame is a lot wider. So it's recommended that you get at least 2 tubes of frame. We do it welded, but it's definitely recommended because I know just 1 tube, and then you got the door frame like this big, it doesn't look as clean, in my opinion.
Yeah, we had a YouTube video on it where we talked about it a lot.
Did we?
It was I can't remember the color. It was a black and gray building with the lean-to. But I know we talked about it. So if you want a little bit more insight on that, on providing your own doors and maybe things to look out for, you can definitely marketing please link to that video. Check that video out right after you fully watch this one.
And so that answer, guys, I hope you got some value there. I know, Jared, you and I were talking about like getting some feedback because this is our very first episode.
I guess what we want to know is, since this is our first episode of Metal Talks, at least where we actually discuss situations, did we talk a lot? Were we yapping too much? Should we get more to the point, right? I feel like, it's a small topic, but and unfortunately, it's something that a lot of customers deal
with. Yeah.
So hey, I guess our question is, let us know what you think in the comment sections. I don't know exactly how long this video is, but should we try to condense more our opinions, or hey, maybe y'all want us to keep talking more, right, on the same subject? Or it's all open discussions. We want to know how we can better improve at least Metal Talk. So just let us know what you think in the comment sections on that.
Yeah. Also, even like feedback on how to solve this. If you have other ideas, again, that is all acceptable. We love feedback. That's what makes us great. That's why we revamp industry standards, because we're constantly listening to the challenges and the problems. And so that's what Metal Talks is all about. And we'll see you guys in episode number. Is that good? I thought it was good.